and welcome to the Art of Being Human. Now, as we've been talking about anxiety and stress, remember I have said that when you are reliving the things that have happened to you in the past, you can get all of the symptoms that you had in the past. Sometimes you might not remember exactly what happened, but if it was a traumatic event and you remember anything that reminds you of that traumatic event, which might have been a one-time event or it may have gone over a period of time, then what happens is that you get all of the raw emotions that you had at the time. You not only remember to the extent that you do or don't remember the event itself, but then the emotions kick in and they can be very strong. And they can be so strong it's like you're reliving the whole thing all over again. Remember, I've called this living your past pain. And what happens is that the amygdala, which is in the back of the brain, the more primitive parts of the brain, stores the emotions. And when you start thinking about something that reminds you of a traumatic or a tragic event, those same emotions kick in. And it's like you're living it all over again, which is why you can get post-traumatic stress. And it happens that you relive it over and over again, and you can get anxiety and you can get panic. And remember I said that I think that there are some treatment modalities that can help you get rid of it. You don't have to stay stuck in that kind of thing where you're suffering through those emotions over and over and over again. And these are non-invasive, simple techniques. So I've decided today to discuss two of them, and one of them is EMDR. So let me explain to you what this is. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Let me say that again. Eye movement and desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR. It is something that some people use, and once you learn how to use it, you can use it anytime, anywhere. But to get started, it's best for you to go to somebody that's trained in it. They will show you how to do it. And the thing is, there are simple things you have to do, things that are non-invasive, but simple things that you have to do. But the thing is, you need to get it processed and in the right order. It does seem to make a difference. So what I think these methods are, and I think there are quite a few of them out there, but I've chosen these two because I'm more familiar with them, but I know that there's at least one other, and I'm sure there's more than that, and as time goes on, there'll be more and more as we go along. It acts as a distraction. When you're at a high anxiety level because you're remembering something and it's very, very painful to you, or you're going to go through something that's going to be painful for you to emotionally, and you're afraid of it, if you can distract yourself and think of something else, non-consequential, just something that's kind of a time saver and a space taker, then you can reduce the level of anxiety. And I remember telling you about a friend of mine who was afraid of elevators, and she got on an elevator, and there were a few of us together, and we all knew each other. We'd just come from a conference, and she was terrified. She was in an elevator. I didn't even know she had that problem. And somebody took out a penny and said, "Look at this penny." And she looked at the penny. "Describe the penny. Whose image is on it? What year was it? What's it look like? Is it three-dimensional?" And they concentrated and concentrated on that penny. And it reduced her anxiety so that by the time we got to the floor that we wanted to be on, she was no longer afraid and she was fine. So I think it's the art of distraction. Now, I had an experience, and I kind of caught on to it. I'd gone to a funeral of a friend of mine, and it was a very, very sad funeral. Everybody was crying. Everybody was having a terrible time with their emotions, and it was just an awful thing. And I had with me a calendar, and on the back of some calendars, I tried to find one of my own calendars, but my own modern calendars I don't have it on, but it'll give lists of things. Some of them will be weights and measures. How many ounces in a pound? What about liters? What's dry weight? What's liquid weight? And some of them will even have the names and addresses and phone numbers of all of the airplane companies in the United States, all of the planes that are flying. And so, and you can read that. But I think anything would do. You could take directions for baking a cake and read them over and over. You could take friends' names and addresses and look at them and see if you can remember what they are. Anything that is non-consequential, it's not going to change world history, it's not going to change you, it's just a distraction of something that's mundane. And you look at it and you get distracted, and you're doing that as you're facing something or remembering something that's painful. And what happens is that it draws the anxiety down. Anything that you can do that's not harmful and not anything that's important, but it takes and just draws the anxiety down so it's manageable. Most people, when they have anticipatory anxiety, and I think a lot of our anxiety now is anticipatory, what's going to happen next? What if I lose my job? What if I can't stay in the house? What if I get evicted for non-payment of rent? What if, what if, what if? These are scenarios that might or might not happen, but they cause you to have fear. But particularly when you're remembering something in your past that was traumatic, an accident you had, a mugging that you had, some kind of a court system where something went wrong, going into the hospital for some reason and running into a problem there, and you're remembering a little bit of it, maybe most of it, and you're frightened by it. You have all of the same emotions. I passed an accident once. It was like 11 or 11:30 at night. I'd been at the university and I had gotten out late and I was going home, and I came upon the accident. The police were already there. And there was a girl screaming, "Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up." She was screaming to another person who was unconscious. And I think her fear was this person may have passed on. It may have been an accident in which this person died. And this other person is screaming at her, "Wake up, come on, wake up," in a very loud voice. Now the police were there and they didn't stop her. They didn't send her to the hospital. I imagine she ended up in the hospital. But remembering something like this would have brought on that same kind of anxiety all over again. So how do you stop the anxiety? I've had so many people that I've counseled say to me, "Well, now I understand what happened, but how does this heal me?" I think it's the first step in healing. You have to understand what you've been dealing with. That's the first step in healing. But beyond that, how do you get past something that you can't seem to let go of? Well, sometimes these methods help. This EMDR, the eye movement, the whole thing is based upon eye movement. And I'm going to tell you basically, I'm not giving you instructions as to how to do it, but I'm going to give you a general sense of what happens here. Because people can be trained to do this. And you can go to a person and they will put you through these sessions, and eventually you'll start to see a difference in your anxiety, but you can also learn how to do it at home. And if you do it in the right sequence and in the right order, you can do it anytime you want to, because it's non-invasive. You're not injecting something into your body. You're not taking pills. You're not changing your diet, whatever it is. It's very, very non-invasive. And you're doing simple things, blinking an eye, rubbing your arm, putting your hand across your forehead, things like that, and blinking your eyes at certain times. So I'm going to go through EMDR with you as one of those things. And if you want, you might want to try online and see if you can get more specific instructions online, or go to a person who's trained in it. I think it's helpful to go to somebody because you may have therapeutic issues that you need to involve a therapist to help you with. But this is a way for you to reduce the anxiety in the meantime. Okay, so I'm going to give you a case study. This is a case study of a woman who was divorced in an abuse case, and the husband was very, very abusive. He threatened to kill her every day. He would put a knife to her throat and tell her he was going to kill her every day. He was a drug addict. He had violent rages, screaming and yelling, and he was a criminal. Now, eventually, he ended up in prison. And while he was in prison, she successfully divorced him. But what did it leave her with? Fear. anything that came up, a person whose name was similar, or a person who looked like her ex-husband, anything like that caused her to go into wild panic attacks, and she could not get control of the panic attacks. And she had actually been to the hospital with them, and she'd been hospitalized 13 or 14 times to help her to get over the panic, but it stayed with her. She had all kinds of post-traumatic stress symptoms, and that was due to the fact of the way he treated her, which was terrible. And it was too bad that she got married to him to begin with. So what this thing, she started using this eye movement therapy, and it's based basically on eye movements. And as she was thinking about the trauma, they want you to think of the trauma. They want you to bring it up to think about. And then as you're thinking about it and you're getting panicked about it, then you use this eye movement therapy, and it seems to make a difference. So what the person does, what the individual comes, the memory becomes less potent, and they can use, and it calms it down so they can use the front part of the brain to think themselves out of it. But first of all, you've got to handle the panic. And the panic is terrible. So what happens is during the session, she is told to pull up into her memory things that frighten her. And that's easy to do because that's why she's getting the panic to begin with, is she's thinking of something that's frightening her. But in this session, this is why I think a therapist is important to at least get you started, because a therapist can help walk you through it. When you're by yourself and you're in a state of panic, what's the thing that you do? More panic. You know, it's very hard to get yourself out of a panic situation if you're in one. If you have a therapist with you and they know what they're doing and they can help you over it, they can work with you on it, and they can use these methods as well. And then you can gradually get better. You don't have to stay stuck. That's the good news. No matter what you're feeling or how bad it is, you don't have to stay stuck. So during the session that I'm talking about, this particular woman who had the husband that was abusive, she thought of her husband pulling a knife on her, which he did daily, I guess. So she became panicked. And so the therapist told her to move her eyes back and forth, and also to move her legs back and forth as well, going from the heel to the toe. So she's moving her eyes back and forth, and then she's moving her feet, which I can't show you, back and forth as well. She's doing both. And it seems like it takes concentration. It's like rubbing your stomach and patting your head at the same time. It takes some concentration. So she's moving her eyes back and forth, and her feet up and down, or back and forth. And then she has to say to herself at the same time, I'm safe now. He's in jail. I'm no longer in danger. The therapist is here. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. So can you imagine all of these things at the same time? Move your eyes back and forth, left and right, left and right. Move your feet back and forth as well, from heel to toe, or toe to heel, whichever it is. And at the same time, thinking about this horrible thing that you're afraid of and saying to yourself, it's okay, I'm safe now. He's no longer here. He's in prison. He can't hurt me. So you are distracting yourself from the fear that you have naturally to things that you do, and the things that you're doing, and saying to yourself, reinforcing the thought, I'm okay now. Nothing bad is going to happen. I'm okay. I'm all right. He's in prison. He's gone. I'm not going to see him again. She would be in such a panic that if she saw somebody that looked like him, she would go into a panic. That's not too unusual with PTSD cases. And so therefore, it would be easy for her to get into a state of fear. She couldn't go into certain taxis because the taxi driver looked like her husband. Oh, he's going to get me, he's going to get me. It's a real post-traumatic stress event. So she's doing all of these things which seem hard to concentrate on. There's a lot to do at the same time. I'm going to move my eyes back and forth. I'm going to move my feet back and forth, and I'm going to blink my eyes, and I'm going to talk to myself and say, I'm safe. Nothing's going to happen to me now. And we're doing that all at the same time. And she went through 4 sessions of this, and all of a sudden she felt better. She felt a lot better. And then it was happening with her is that she was able to learn how to distract herself when she became panicked and tell herself she was okay and focus on something else. And it drove the level of the anxiety down to the point where she recovered from it. No more hospitalizations. And if there's a chance that she's going to get panicked again, she can go do the same thing again. She can go through the same process. It seems like a lot to begin with. Now, I actually went to a therapist just on a consulting basis to see what this was like. So he tried it on me, and it's not hard to do, but you have to really concentrate on it. I did it as an experiment. I didn't go there because of any therapeutic event. I just wanted to see, is it something that I could have my people that I was counseling try for themselves, and could I teach it to them so that they could reduce their anxiety? I had one person I was counseling that when I wasn't there with her, which of course was most of the time, she became anxious. She would pretend that I was with her, and she would pretend what I would say if she told me what was going on. And she told me she was doing that, and I don't know how much it helped her, but it turned out she was telling her things I probably wouldn't have said, but it didn't matter. If it gave her some comfort at the time, maybe it reduced her anxiety level. People find things to do that will help them with their anxiety. But this is a kind of a complex thing. If you stop to think of it, you're feeling fear. I wasn't when it was done to me because I was doing it at a consultation level. But a person is feeling terrible fear and panicking. Okay, blink your eyes, move your eyes back and forth, move your eyes back and forth, put your feet back and forth, talk to yourself saying you're okay, you don't have anything to worry about, you're going to be okay, and then gradually get your anxiety level down. And it does seem to help. Now, what happens in a general sense, when anxious thoughts happen, you should focus on a nearby object. And you should not, and you should note everything about that object. Supposing I was panicked, I'm not, by the way, I'm very comfortable, but if I were panicked, or if I was in a state of panic, if I was sitting in an office in a state of panic about something, how could I bring my panic level down? Well, in front of me is a group of pens. I could take that group of pens and I could look, okay, here's a black one. Here's a red one. Here's another one that comes from a bank. Here's an eraser. There's an eraser on this one. And I could note everything about it, not take my eyes off from it, concentrate on that over and over again. Okay, how many pens are there? I could count them. There's a yellow one. How many colors? Yellow, orange, red, black, pink. There's even a pink thing here. On and on it goes. And if I concentrate on that over and over again, and I don't think about anything else, I try not to think about anything else, even though the panic, I know why the panic is there. I'm panicking over something, and I just do this. And eventually, of course, it's going to drive down the anxiety. So the advice is to find something local, something that's close to you, something that's around you, and focus on it so hard, or try to focus on it so hard, that you don't think so much about the thing that you're afraid of. And gradually, that drives the level down, and the fear and the panic will eventually pass. Now, I read a book written by a pastor, and the pastor said he said he had a nervous breakdown. Actually, the nerves don't break down, so there's no such thing as a nervous breakdown. But he was thinking he was having a nervous breakdown. And he imagined himself on a beach, and he was having this panic, waves of panic roll over him. He imagined himself at a beach, and as the panic level was raising up, as the panic was getting worse, he imagined the waves crashing over him, and then the water just dissipating and going back out to sea, and then the panic would drop. And he did this over and over again. As he was in a state of panic, the waves come and they crash over him, and then they settle down and they go back out to sea, and then the panic dissipates a little. Now that seemed to help him. He described how he did it for something that was happening in his own life, and it seemed to help him. But the idea is to concentrate on something and to do it to such a degree that it becomes like a figure in ground. A figure in ground, I've done drawings of figure in ground, where you look at a picture and it can be either this or that, it can be two different things, and you can flash it back and forth. And I've done drawings on that, and you see the lamp posts and the two faces facing each other, and then it becomes a lamp. The figure in ground is what you concentrate on, is figure, and everything else becomes ground. Well, if I'm in a state of panic and I'm looking at this is going to be my figure, and the panic and everything around me is going to become ground. It's there, but I'm not paying that much attention to it. It's when you're studying, and you're trying to pass a test, and you're studying, and you have a radio or a TV on. When you're studying, the stuff that you're studying becomes your figure. The music on the radio or whatever else is going on becomes ground. You're aware that it's there, but you're not paying attention to it. I think that there's something to be said, and I hadn't thought of it before, that these items become of concentration, become a figure in ground situation, where you concentrate on what you want to concentrate on, your eye movement, you're kicking your feet, whatever else it is that you're being instructed to do, that becomes your figure. And all of the things that you're terrified about becomes ground, and they're not so important. And eventually you can get to the point, and I'm not saying it's right away, but it really is fairly soon, within a few weeks, and that's better than having years of anxiety. You can think of what happened to you, and it's past. It hasn't gone away, but it doesn't have to haunt you anymore. It's there, but it isn't there to haunt you. It's there as a distant memory of something that happened, and it happened, and it's over, and it's done with, and now you can face your life, and you have closure for it. It brings you closure for it, so you can keep on going. So that, I had one more I want to share with you, and that's happening, but I'm going to do that next time, because this has taken most of my time for this. But I think it's worth looking at that. If you're having severe anxiety, and you just don't seem to be getting over it, and you know what caused it, and you have kind of an understanding, but you need help with the emotions, go to a therapist that will help you, and even suggest that somehow you get directed to a therapist that has some of these techniques in hand, because there are quite a few of them, but EMDR seems to be a very popular one, and does seem to be quite effective to drive that anxiety down. And of course, if you need help, the value of the therapist is that you may need some help in reconstructing your past and looking at it from a different point of view and all of that. And that you can't get except from the therapy itself. So I'm going to close it here, and we're going to go on with this next time, and I'll be going into happening, which is another situation of helping you to drive down anxiety by using a different kind of a method, a figure ground method, I'll call it. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.